He gave me a choice of two movies, overall movie or the Vixen movie. I asked for both. I didn't ask how long they were. An hour long.
For the sweetest flower of his garden rolls round his soil mossy ground. For she wanders the path of this garden, and it's here this flower can be found. She wills to walk on this new season, our wells are washed with earthy soil. She wills to walk on this new season, our wells are washed with earthy soil.
In 1857, John George Adair first saw Glenveagh. He fell in love with the area and began buying the land for a hunting estate.
He decided that he'd like to have a hunting lodge, summer residence in a nice remote area. And I think he certainly picked one of the best spots you could have in the whole area around the lake. There's a slight promontory which has mainly level ground on it, and it was possible to build a building which would look both up and down and across the lake at the same time.
In the wake of the Glenveagh evictions of 1861, when 46 families were forced from their land, Adair started construction of Glenveagh Castle. The castle was built in the Scottish baronial style and would go on to become a place of glamour, intrigue and eventually pride for the people of Donegal.
The inspiration for the castle here is attributed to Balmoral Castle, which was Queen Victoria's Scottish summer residence. And among the well-off people like Mr. Adair, he would have aspired to be in with the aristocracy, and he would be trying to keep up with the style which they liked. All the stone used in the castle is local granite. One of the things about granite is that because it's so hard, it isn't very easy to carve subtle details. So basically what you have is rubble stonework for the most part. It's just around the front door. There's a little bit of decoration. When this was built, there were no trees around, and it was basically an open moorland, and to see newly cut granite in such a scale in that particular environment was a bit of a shock to a lot of people. But obviously, over the years, with the growth of the gardens and the various pine trees around it, it now has weathered in very well, I'd have to say. The main tall tower of the castle is based on the Irish Tower House, and it has the stepped battlements, which are a particular feature in Ireland.
Adair met Cornelia Ritchie in the 1860s while on a business trip in America, and they married in Paris in 1867. They planned to divide their time between their business ventures in America and summers at Glenveagh. John George Adair died in America in 1885, but his wife survived him by 36 years. Mrs. Adair decided to return to Ireland and make her residence in Ireland her own. She carried out major improvements to the castle and gardens, making it a comfortable retreat for visitors. Mrs. Adair entertained in style at the castle and became a society hostess of note. Many came for the deer stalking. Others came for the hospitality offered in the sumptuous surroundings.
She extended the castle twice at least, and she was responsible for the Round Tower, which is a particularly attractive feature of the castle. She also, socially, I think she was a lot more acceptable to the local people than her husband had been, and I think she was very highly regarded, and she provided employment in the locality, and was generally, she was seen as a very positive figure.
After the outbreak of World War I, Mrs. Adair ceased to live at the castle, but arranged for a group of Belgian refugees to stay. In gratitude, they constructed the woodland walk, known as the Belgian Walk. In 1922, anti-treaty forces known as the Irregulars occupied the castle. They were later forced to leave by the Free State Army. This time of unrest caused the castle to decline, and on the death of Mrs. Adair, her grandson put it on the market. It was sold to Arthur Kingsley Porter and his wife Lucy. The new owner was a professor at Harvard University, specialising in medieval art and architecture. He used Glenveagh as a summer base from which to study Irish archaeology. He set about repairing the castle, painting the rooms and adding the shell decoration to the hall. He also added a fine collection of paintings by A.E. Russell. Sadly, Kingsley Porter's time at Glenveagh was cut short after he mysteriously went missing off the Donegal island of Inishbofin. Soon after, the estate went on the market again. This time it was purchased by another American, Henry McElhenney, whose grandfather originally came from the nearby town of Carrigart. Henry worked at the Philadelphia Museum of Art as curator of decorative arts, which allowed him long summer recesses to visit Donegal. From 1937 until 1983, McElhenney stayed for several months each year at Glenveagh, where much of his time was devoted to the restoration of the castle and development of the gardens. Under his guidance, the estate prospered and was visited by leading figures of international society. The castle was visited by writers, politicians, businessmen, and movie stars. Music and song prevailed, and guests were entertained in lavish style.
Obviously spend time walking in the hills, a certain amount of chasing stags and things like that. But by and large, I think the relaxation was the feeling about the place in those days.
Henry McElhenney's improvements and decorative taste are what today's visitor can still see and enjoy. The deer theme is a central feature of the house decor, as captured in these landscape paintings. Many of the paintings, furniture and silverware remain in place. The colour schemes and arrangements have been kept, and the contents represent an eclectic mix of Georgian, Regency and Victorian styles. Outside, McElhenney added lush gardens and exotic plants to soften the castle's hard appearance on the landscape. There are the formal elements, such as the elegant Italian terrace and the Tuscan garden with its classical statues and busts. Viewpoints designed to give sweeping views over Loch Veigh, and at every turning, unusual features creating a sense of mystery and intrigue. Eventually, the travelling from America and the upkeep of the estate became too much for McElhenney, and in 1975 he agreed the sale of the estate to the state to become a national park. In July 1984, Glenveagh National Park opened its doors to the public for the first time.
The last private owner, Henry McElhenney, and the garden designers that he had working for him, Jim Russell and Larry Roper, they really created this remarkable, internationally renowned garden that we have here today. The fact that the gardens are set around a castle in the middle of a national park sets them out by themselves as something very special. It's not a new garden. There are new bits to it all the time. We're constantly reworking bits, but it's got layers of work, of years and years of care and maintenance. So that's probably what makes it very special, sets it apart as one of the best in the country. The garden here can act as a reserve for growing unusual species that are now becoming rare or extinct. We treat the garden like it is a botanical garden, like a botanical collection, so we keep plant records. We are very careful about what we introduce. We're also very interested in growing new material, particularly plants that are of conservation value. So a lot of the plants we have in the wall garden have heritage values.
I would describe it as a wonderland in that in an area where you would not expect to find such splendour, going over the tops of mountains practically to get to it, and you suddenly arrive in an oasis of calm where there are beautiful gardens, there's a beautiful lake, and the Sis House Bridge is very welcoming.
Today, the castle is visited by thousands of people every year. Children use the grounds for nature trips and educational activities. And tourists can explore remote mountain walks, the ornate kitchen gardens, and the splendid castle rooms. Nowhere in Ireland is there such a remarkable contrast between the rugged natural landscape and the luxurious gardens and castle as in Glenveagh.
She kneels to welcome this new season. Her bells are black with earthy soil, but her fairer than ribbons are growing. She grieves the garden with a sigh.
Have to wait now for the next one to start. Must be automatic. It's good sound in here. I think it has both speakers. Wee chairs are not the most comfortable now. They're okay for the wee movie, but you wouldn't want to watch a full film in them. I've got to go out now and tell them, but got a wee laptop and all in it, it's easy. I don't think anybody actually works the projector. I have to go out and check them. I've Luna waiting on me. Thank you. We'll see what I am now, it's nice and warm. Ah, here we go now. Second show now. I always like to get the middle seat now, you get the stereo now. I don't know. Right. Thank you. Can't believe how late it is, 1861.
The 19th century was a bleak time for the Irish people. More than 1 million died in the Great Famine, and 1 million more emigrated. Those that remained farmed what land they could, often in the face of poverty and desolation. Mostly tenant farmers, they were completely at the mercy of a landlord or his agent. When a lease expired, a landlord profited from any improvements made by the tenant, and, more worryingly, a tenant had no security. He could and would evict his tenants as he pleased.
That still goes on today. People renting houses in London and all
This was the
them
scene
places.
in the
Dublin.
Northwest in 1861, where a bitter row was brewing that would seal the fates of 244 men, women and children.
Glenveagh or a bitter scene at Terrible, and actually one at shop, one yarn shop. And so I can't talk to listen later. Well, Rinyan arm shop is starting here. The arms and currently are steel mail and McCartney for all Garth more to get a bit guardian here and the heart. I think it would be the first ocean connection. Obviously, Henderson and the Albury and Shasper I was saying, Bonnie and the Bonnie football. Obviously, it's by the black shot, come up on the piece of the Farhash.
In 1857, John George Adair, Irishman and tenants' rights supporter, visited Glenveagh and determined to buy the property.
There were these entrepreneurs going around buying up the land at a very cheap rate, hoping that it would be that they'd be able to make money out of it themselves. They weren't really interested in the tenants that were still there. And the one who came up to Churchill was John George Adair. And he bought it, and from the very beginning the tenants were not too happy about it. He said he wasn't really interested in making money out of it, he just loved the area, but he kept adding and adding and adding till he owned nearly all the land and all the fishing rights and shooting rights and all that. He was sort of making barriers where you can't let your cattle onto this piece, or so that all the time they were loggerheads with him.
In fact, John Adair's introduction to Glenveagh would bring with it a dark cloud that would forever cast a shadow on its history.
He got the bright idea from the Clonmacnoise area to bring in sheep from Scotland, which meant that the tenants would lost some of their land. Whenever he brought the sheep in, he brought shepherds with him. One of them was called Murray, James Murray, and he was the main person there. He was the sort of the agent come shepherd.
Through his actions, Murray became deeply unpopular with the tenants, an unpopularity that would make him fear for his life. The Scottish shepherds were found to be running a scam, losing sheep on the mountain, and then claiming compensation of up to 3 times the worth of the sheep. In Glenveagh, 85 sheep went missing. Murray claimed that it was the troublesome peasants that had killed or stolen them. When police investigated, they found the majority dead from exposure on the mountain, and the rest as skins in Murray's own cottage. On the 13th of November, he went up to Farscalp Mountain to round up sheep and never returned.
He wouldn't normally have been out through the hills himself looking about the sheep, but this particular day he did go. So he went up the hill on his own with his dogs, and he never came back. And some hours later, the dogs came back, one of them was covered with blood. So that was Tuesday, and they found him on the Thursday. It took 2 days to find him. They had threatened to put them out anyway, but the three clergy in the parish had tried to dissuade him from doing it, and they all joined together to do their best to save the people from being put out. But as a result of the murder of Murray, they had an excuse to put them all out.
Fearing conspiracy and revolt from his tenants, an angry John Adair resolved to make them pay. And in the beginning of 1860, he did just that. The tenants were put out on the side of the road, many ragged and barefoot. Their lands confiscated to help build up the Glenveagh estate.
A few days before the evictions, Howard Care went around to all the houses, those that were about to be evicted, and told them to go quietly, and gave them last rites for the elderly and gave them all communion. According to the presiding officer in Letterkenny, the person in charge in Letterkenny at the time, he was sent out to find out what happened to the people. But he said he had seen nothing like it in all his years. He described how the places outside each of the houses that the people lived in, there was still the midden, because there were byre houses, the cows and the people lived together in the house, and the manure was just put out in heaps. In fact, Mrs. Adair used to all that for the gardens in Glenveagh, which is sad too, isn't it, to think that that was the only thing that was left whenever they had the houses knocked, you know. And probably some of the walls were taken to build the walls of the castle. I went somewhere. They're not there much now. And those were all stone walls.
The best account of the evictions was in the Londonderry Standard newspaper. The first eviction was particularly distressing. House of a widow, Mac Ward, aged 60, 6 daughters and a son, and with bleak poverty before them. A scene indescribable. Frantic with despair, flying screams on the mountainside for miles around. They naturally lost all hope. Those who witnessed their agony will never forget the sound. The sobs of the helpless children took hold of every heart.
The shepherd who took over Murray's job was in charge of putting them out. He was the man on the ground to do the actual work. His name was Pearson. He also came from Scotland. And this old man was trying to tell me that his granny was one of the children put out, and she had long hair, and he wound the hair around his wrist and took her out with as they said, the hair of the head. I felt sorry for everyone, but I never felt sorry for Grierson. He seemed to be a real rascal. There were 244 people put out in a mile stretch of this road. I wouldn't even keep one family today.
Bhain síl go dtí caithfeamachas ag taltaí ag an sin fíorleachar. Nar a chorann tú amach bhí hála de Jimgéan Rivision an Garta agus mar sin agus an achtar mór seo. Bhain síl fíorleachar acu bhain siad gan cealracht ní bhagus acu céad faiban a lebu bhain teachtain as a bóthar rompú agus lacu se agus lacu se tobal fada acu iad hen haint a cheile
The authorities were sent out to look for them, to see where they were, and to make room for them in the workhouse in Letterkenny. But the bulk of them went to the workhouse, the older people. Some of the young people who went in and were sick and stayed until the following year, till they went to Australia. When they were walking out to go to Australia, they detoured over to the graveyard and lay down in the graves and cut pieces of like tufts of grass and took it with them. One of them gave up at the bridge there and then couldn't go any further. Some harrowing stories told about that day. And it must have been a sad day when they left.
Mógin bradú gur ó point na gur ó clocht páirteas na haimplí seo ag an ansin. Agus is é tánta speisialta an ceantar seo. Is cinn an na haimplí agus an na haimplí smó isteach na condaí san copcéad déantarna. Tá just bí lóirtarnis agus beidir analyst na sláí anna námar a riniu. Dí seo nar a caiine tú níl se go reis na beidir ceadú piglú nar a hála haimplí mór sin. Bhí a daoine ganta gur ó fáil caiinteach agus gur hanig na sciatú gus beganna ó glúr ní arnú analyst trom capsia condition of English agus is my one particularly sort of an picture crim on the car agus captain all was.
Of the 244 people evicted from Glenveagh that April, some found shelter with relatives, some went to the workhouse, and 150 of them emigrated to Australia and were never heard from again.
None of them ever seemed to write home. I never saw a letter from anyone. See, they were illiterate. The school had only been going 2 years when the elections happened. So they couldn't have written home. And then as well as that, stamps were very dear at the time. So they wouldn't have. And they never came back.
The property of the entire Glenveagh estate now belongs to the nation.
That was a good wee movie, so it was. Both any movies are very good. Now I got to the garden, now it makes more sense. So I would definitely say, if anybody coming here, watch the movies before you go into the rest of the estate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where's the wee village there? Site of evictions. Don't know if it shows up or not. It's not that far from the castle, it's just over the hill really. I might just go to the tower before we go any further. This is the men's toilets here. This whole building's done in circles. You got the big circle, and it's all circles, the whole building's circles. But I thought it was interesting here. Look at the manhole cover. That has a manhole cover to service the toilets. It's a circle. And the wee light above the match. I think that's a good touch, isn't it? That takes a wee bit of measuring out, getting the pipe and the plumb in the right place, that lines up. That's the architect there, you see. Nice wee turrets and all in here. They're showing a wee bit of wear and tear. But it's nicely made, like. Wee fly nets and all in the windows. Female straight opposite, it's another circle. The whole building's circles. Circle dining room, like circle cafe. Don't like the tablecloths. Get the idea, like. The actual kitchen's in the middle. It's unusual, isn't it, like? Kitchen's all in the middle. And the main reception, that's a circle. Everything's circles. And the theatre's a big circle with all these circles around it. But the only problem I have, you know what, but now the architect designed the building, but it'd be nice to have wee circle picnic tables, wouldn't it? Aye. Keep the thing going. That wee circle out here, circles everywhere, circle lights. You ain't got light has just circle by accident. That's your architect. But he must have nothing to do with the picnic tables. Curves everywhere. So there's the bus stop there now. It's packed with people, packed. What's a wee minibus now? It's got two buses going up. I could easily put wee Luna now, you know. Luna's been on Austell bus, she's been on train. She's very good. We're going to have to walk it today. But I watched the movie in there, the Belgian garden. World War I Belgian refugees stayed in the castle. So up until World War I, the original owner's wife lived in the castle in the summertime. She lived in America. She came over here and spent most of her retirement actually in the castle after the husband died. And she extended the castle. So the castle we see today isn't the castle he built. The castle he built sort of nothing like what we're going to see today. He built a castle in the middle of moorland. All the gardens, most of the gardens have all been done with future generations. And most extensions was done by her as an ex-wife. So that was interesting to see the wee movie. He just built it as a hunting lodge, but nobody lived full time in it. Went from owner to owner, 3 owners. Nobody lived full time in the castle. The wee video ends up then about how all the locals were evicted and ended up in workhouses, and 121 or something went to Australia. And now it belongs to the Irish state again. Like, nobody lives on it. There never has been families brought back to the place. So regardless of who owns it now, the original owners were put off, never got back.